Welcome to Healthy Living, your health awareness show on Afro Worldview, the show that keeps you informed with all your health-related matters. My name is Ronald Avergy. As we wrap up July, we focus on World Hepatitis Day and anxiety as another element of mental health awareness. First up, let's check what we have in store for you today. We speak to Professor Jose Ramos from the Wits Gordon Medical Center. Then, Bradley Daniels tackles anxiety and panic disorder. And we close with an easy-to-do workout routine. Hepatitis refers to an inflammatory condition of the liver. It's commonly caused by a viral infection, but there are other possible causes. These include autoimmune hepatitis and hepatitis that occurs as a secondary result of medication, drugs, toxins, and of course, alcohol. Professor Jose Ramos sheds more light on hepatitis. Professor, thank you so much for your time and joining us on the show. So the first question would be what is the liver and what is its function in the body?
The liver is basically one of the most important metabolic organs. By metabolic, it means that it functions to process what we take into our bodies and deliver it to the rest of the body in a way that can be used. So it's got a vital role in metabolism, and it can't be replaced. The problem with the liver, once it's not functioning, we don't have a substitute for the liver in the same way we have, for example, for kidney failure. We can give patients dialysis. For the liver, there's very little we can do, and there are no machines at the moment which can replicate the liver function.
And you mentioned alcohol, and we know that the alcohol companies are making billions of dollars, and especially in South Africa, we know people love to binge drink because money's scarce, so when they do drink, it's a binge drinking experience. What role does the overconsumption of alcohol play in affecting the functioning of our liver?
Well, alcohol, if you talk about a binge drink, so if you drink so much, you can actually get an acute inflammation of the liver. It's almost like you had an acute viral infection or a drug reaction where you actually can go into acute liver failure from the alcohol. The bigger problem is the long-term abuse of alcohol, where you start to get death of the liver cells, replacement by scar tissue, and eventually cirrhosis. So there are two elements to alcohol. In both instances, you should not abuse alcohol. And just one thing I'd like to point out, people think that they can take a liver tonic or something to prevent the liver injury. That doesn't work. So if you take one of these products that's supposedly going to prevent your liver, you can't go out and binge drink, or you can't go and consume a bottle of whiskey or brandy per day and not have consequences. You can't necessarily avoid the risks of excess alcohol. So the message is, of course, enjoy alcohol, but in moderation.
I think that's with everything that comes in the lifestyles that we're leading, and even exercise, because you can over-exercise as well, so find the balance.
Just another important point, it's often not just one factor that causes the liver to become damaged, it's often the coexistence of factors. So for example, if you've got fatty liver disease and you're drinking excessive alcohol, the two are almost worse together than the individual effects of each. Similarly, if you've got a viral hepatitis and you've got obesity or you take excess alcohol, these combined factors make the damage even worse than they would have been with the individual ones.
But speaking about hepatitis, Professor, what is hepatitis and how common is it in the country?
Okay, the term hepatitis is a generic term for inflammation of the liver. So, for example, tonsillitis would be inflammation of the tonsils, and appendicitis is all itis at the end. Hepatitis is inflammation of the liver. So it just means that if you had to look at the liver cells under a microscope, you would see signs of acute inflammation. And there are many different causes. So viral infections can cause it. Acute injury from, say, a drug reaction. I'm not talking about an overdose of a drug necessarily, but sometimes you get like an allergic reaction to a drug can cause hepatitis. Acute excess alcohol in a binge can cause hepatitis. Autoimmune conditions. There are many different causes of inflammation of the liver. So the term hepatitis refers to inflammation of the liver. And then you basically clarify what the cause is by saying viral hepatitis, so it's virus infections, or acute alcoholic, or drug-induced hepatitis. So you preface it by what the cause is, and it gives you an idea of what's causing the inflammation of the liver.
Professor, what are the different types of hepatitis that affect the people out there?
As I said, the common ones that we should focus on, because there are possibly ways we can avoid it, is the viral hepatitis. Okay, apart from the lifestyle ones, with avoiding alcohol, you can't avoid autoimmune diseases and drug reactions, and excess drug overdose can sometimes cause it, but those are relatively small issues in the greater scheme of things. One of the biggest causes of chronic liver disease is the viral hepatitis infection. There are 5 types of viral hepatitis: A, B, C, D, and E. D and E are relatively minor issues, and we're not going to focus on them. Hepatitis A is a very common condition. It's usually picked up in childhood, and very often the child doesn't even look ill when they pick it up. It's from contamination of food or water supplies. It's via an oral intake. And once you've had it, you show immunity to hepatitis A. So it seldom causes a problem in childhood. If an adult, however, was not exposed as a child and picks up hepatitis A as an adult, sometimes it can also be a severe acute illness. And the patient can land up, in fact, with liver failure, but it's not common. The bigger problem, because of the overall, what we call the prevalence, so how many patients are living with this disease, is hepatitis B and hepatitis C. In sub-Saharan Africa and in the Asian countries, hepatitis B is by far much more common than hepatitis C, but hepatitis C can't be ignored because of its long-term implications. But hepatitis B is very common in South Africa, Mozambique, sub-Saharan Africa, and it has important consequences. When someone is exposed to hepatitis B, they may get a mild infection and then they're immune, and they won't get another infection. If, however, the immune system does not clear the virus then becomes a chronic part of them, and it stays in the liver cells. And that's when we say the patient's got chronic hepatitis B virus infection. And those patients are at risk of developing the complications of chronic viral infection, so cirrhosis and liver cancer. And sometimes, or most often, the sequence is the viral infection, chronic stage, cirrhosis, and then cancer. But you can go from the infection, chronic infection, directly to cancer without the cirrhosis in between. Hepatitis C is a similar thing because it can become chronic. In fact, if you're exposed to it, you generally don't clear it. There are differences in what we can do about these diseases. Hepatitis B, first of all, is usually a blood-borne infection. So blood transfusions, intravenous drug use, it's a common cause of picking up hepatitis virus with a shared needle, for example. But also it's sexually transmitted. Oh, wow. So that is one of the commoner causes of transmission in an adult. The big thing about hepatitis B, however, is that it can be prevented because there is a vaccine. So ideally, all of our children should be vaccinated against hepatitis B. It should, and it is being rolled out by the government health departments in the same way you get vaccinated for many other diseases. But many people escape that service. They don't get vaccinated, or they are now adults, and it wasn't available when they were a child. But if you've not been exposed to hepatitis B, even as an adult, you can get a vaccine, and it is pretty effective. Sometimes you need a booster, but it can be prevented.
Professor, thank you so much for your time and sharing these experts' insights and giving us these pearls of wisdom for us to implement into our lives to look after the health of our livers.
My pleasure.
The liver is an essential part of our metabolic processes. Thank you, Professor Ramos, for giving us insight into this vital organ. It's now time to check out what we have in store for you in Health News.
A commonly used heart medication in South Africa has been recalled due to a recently revealed potential link to cancer. International media reports linked the medicine to a number of countries, but there had been no public communication in South Africa, leaving many to wonder if the country was similarly affected. Health News has confirmed with the South African Health Products Regulator Authority that South Africans are indeed affected, as 2 local pharmaceutical companies had received their active ingredients from the affected site in China. In many parts of South Africa, over 50% of sex workers are living with HIV. Speaking during a tour of the red light district, Kholi Buthelezi, the national coordinator of Sisonke, a South African sex worker organization, called for the complete decriminalization of sex work in South Africa. The criminalization of sex workers, injected drug users, and gay men in many countries battling to overcome HIV are key focuses on the International AIDS Conference, which opened in Amsterdam on Monday. Sticking with one primary care doctor may help you stay healthy and extend your life, according to a new study. Researchers reviewed 22 studies from 9 countries with different cultures and health systems. Of those, 18 concluded that staying with the same doctor over time significantly reduced early deaths compared with switching doctors. In South Africa, Health Minister Aaron Motsoaledi has said that the national health insurance will be compulsory for all South African citizens. One of the major issues highlighted with this is that patients won't have access to the same general practitioners. While the debate about public breastfeeding continues to rage, Spur state branches have taken a stand, encouraging breastfeeding at their branches. The restaurant chain has erected new posters at its restaurants stating that it supports breastfeeding and that all moms are welcome to breastfeed their children in the restaurants. Spur is a family-friendly restaurant which places a great amount of emphasis on families, especially children. Hence, breastfeeding is welcomed at Spur, the policy poster says.
Stay tuned. After the break, we speak to clinical psychologist Bradley R. Daniels.